Dear students, in this video we are going to see how to integrate Java Swing application with the MySQL Server database. In my previous video, I have explained how to create a simple Swing application with Swing controls, and also I have explained how to download and install a MySQL Server and creating a database and table inside the MySQL Server, and how to integrate the MySQL database along with the Java console application. This video we are going to develop a Java Swing application with the MVC framework. What is this MVC? MVC represents Model View Controller. The Java application is divided into three main logical components which represents model, view and the controller. The model represents the data and the view represents the UI design and the controller represents the logic. So in the data, what we are going to do is, suppose we have a database. The database have a table called as user data, and it has two fields. One is called as user ID, which is an integer data type, and another one is called as user name, which is the varchar data type. And now this database will be converted like a model, that is the entity. So how we have to represent? The table name will be represented as a class name. So class user data, and the column names available in your database will be considered as the data members. So the data members are integer user ID, and the next member is the string user name. So this is called as entity framework. So our table will be now converted as a model with classes and object concept. So easily you can access the table name as a object, that is you create the object user data u is equal to new user data. So the table will be accessed through the class name and the object. The members of the table, that is the column names in the table, will be accessed as the data members of the class. Through the object you can access all these information. And next is the view. So view contains the GUI design, so that will be developed with the Java Swing controls. And controller, so controller acting as a logic or the functionality which allow you to perform the data manipulation between the view and the model. So we can fetch the data from the GUI, and that data will be processed and sent to the database for storing. Same thing in the reverse, we fetch the data from the database, process, and that will be displayed in the GUI. Now we will create an application using the Eclipse environment. To work with, first we need to create a database. Already I have created the database inside my MySQL Server workbench. The database name is userdb and the table name is user data. And in that I have two columns. The first column represents the user ID, which is an integer data type, and the user name, which is the varchar data type. And I have added some rows also inside this table with 3 rows, that is 3 records added inside the table. Now we are moving to the Eclipse environment. So Eclipse environment, I have created a project name called as database demo. And inside the project, I have kept 3 packages because I am going to develop this application in an MVC framework. So 3 packages, 1 package for view, 1 package for model, and 1 package for the controller. And then I have a main function. The main function, I have imported the package and then I have called this view. So automatically my view is containing the GUI. So the view will start to execute. I have imported all the package, that is the UI design will be available in the user view. So that package I have imported here. When I invoke the particular user view class, then automatically the user view will be executed. So I have divided my control or my application into 3 different parts, that is view, model and controller. So first I will go with the model. So inside the model package, first I need to convert my table into a classes and object concept. So I have created the class name and the file name. Both are user underscore data, which is nothing but my table name. Table name inside my SQL server. Then I have two data types. One is the user ID. So this is my column name 1 and the column name 2. So you have to use only the same name whatever you have given for the column name inside your server. The same column name and the same table name. The table name should be a class name and the column name should be your data members. So first data is integer, second data is string. Then I have created one empty constructor and also one 2 argument constructor to initialize the data members of this particular classes and object. So now we are having, this is a private member. So private members cannot be accessed outside. So we have to create the getter and setter. So right click in your Eclipse file. So we have the thing called as source. So in the source you have to give generate getters and setters. So using the getter and setter, the private members can be accessed outside of the class using this getter and setter. This is the getter setter for the first user ID variable, and for username we have the getter and setter. So now our model is ready. We have converted our table as a classes and entity concept. And now we are going to see how our GUI has to look like. So I will just execute. So this is the way how my GUI has to look like. So it should having the label controls, text box control, button control, combo box and one JTable control. So we know already how to design this simple swing controls. So using that, just design this framework, because we have to give the ID and name that is available in our table. We need to insert a value, that is saving. Then we need to edit the value. Then we need to delete the value and we need to display the value. So the ID is set as primary key. So it will not be repeated, and also the deletion will be happen based on the ID, because ID primary means it is a unique value. Edit also I will perform based on the ID value. And now how to design this? We'll go with the user view. So the user view contains the GUI information. So this is the basic information you want to create the GUI. First you have to create a frame. Then we have added 2 labels, 2 text box, then 4 buttons, and then the table. And then the table, if the values are exceed, we need to have the scroll in the left side and the down. For that you have the scroll panel and then the combo box. So to create this, first you have to create a JFrame. We are giving the title of the JFrame and setting the default size of the frame with the width and the height, and set default close operation, and followed by the layout is set to null. So if the layout is set to null, for every control explicitly we have to give the XY position and the width and the height. The first control is the label and one text box. The first thing, the ID and the corresponding text box we need to create. So the label is there and the position is set, and it needs to be add inside the frame, then only it will be visible. Same thing, we have created the text field. Similarly, we have created the label for name and the text field for that name field. And we need to create 4 buttons: save button, edit button, delete button, display button. So to create that, we have created button 1 for save, button 2 for edit, button 3 for delete, and button 4 for display. And followed by, we need to create a JTable. So the table will contain the information which is fetched from your database, and it need to be displayed here. So to do that, we have a control called as default table model. So here we have declared everything, default table model. So this default table model has to get the data from your SQL Server database, and that to be displayed inside your JTable control. And this default table model should have two columns, that is the two columns same as your table available in your database, that is the ID and name. So that columns are set for the T model. And now we are creating the J table, that is the swing control, and we are passing the data table model inside the J table. And if the number of rows or number of column exceed in the design, we need to add a scroll. That is, scroll is nothing but the scroll in the left or in the bottom. That's why we have added the scroll pane to the table what we designed. So that part is over, and now this is also added inside your frame. The last control is the combo box. So this is our combo box. So in order to create the combo box, we have developed with J combo box, and that also added inside the frame. So now every controls of your GUI is added inside the J frame. So now when you load it, when you load the first time the frame, already I have 3 rows inside my table. Already I have 3 rows inside the table. So when my application is loaded first time, the 3 information should be loaded here, and the 3 ID numbers need to be loaded here. So to do that, I need to first write the functionality for accessing that. So for that, I have a function called as load ID, because I need to load all the ID information from the database available in the MySQL server. So I have to fetch it using the select query, only the ID numbers, and that ID numbers I need to add it inside the combo box. So I have returned a functionality for load ID. So load ID function is here. So I'll just explain. You can just go through it. The load ID. So initially the list having empty or non-empty. So initially I will remove all the items from the list. The list is nothing but my combo box. So I am removing all the values from it. And I am adding one label for it, that is add item, because whenever I want to add an elements inside the combo box, I need to use the function called as add item. So the first value inside my combo box is the select ID. And the next thing is I need to connect with my server. For that I need a connection string. The connection string contains the URL of your server and then password and the username of the server. And this information I have added inside my controller package. Inside the controller package, I have created a file called as connection string, because multiple times I want to write this connection string again and again to open the connection. So to avoid the writing of the thing again and again and to increase the modularity, I have created my connection string in a separate file. So this is my connection string, get connection with the driver manager. So this also explained in my previous video how to download the JDBC and connect the JDBC jar file inside your project. My JDBC jar file is inside the driver folder. So that video you refer and try to connect your JDBC jar file inside your project. And now the get connection having the information as the URL of the server along with the database name and the username and password for my database. And this connection string will be returned by using this function connect. So that only I am using here. So I call the class connection string. This class is available inside my controller package. So my controller package will be loaded first. So my controller package, I have the connection string class. So that class is first imported. So that class is imported, and when I create the object, I can call the function connect. So when I call the function connect, it will return my connection object. So once my connection object is ready, so this will return my connection object. So once my connection object is ready, now I need to write the query. The query I want to execute now is the select query. I need to extract only the user ID from the table. So I am writing the query as select user ID from the user data. This is my table name and this is the column I want to extract. And I want to create, this is a statement. So inside the connection, the statement get created using the create statement. Now the statement needs to be executed. So we have a function called as execute query. So the query get now executed and the result, that is the 3 rows available in your table, will be written back in the result set object. And I have already told you in the previous video, the result set cursor will be always pointing to the first row, that is the column names available in the table. It will be available here, but my actual row is available in the next row. So I need to move the cursor to the next row. So rs.next will move the cursor to the actual row. By using the while loop, you fetch the each row information and that need to be added in your combo box. So I need to fetch only the user ID. The user ID data type is getInt. That is the only one column. I want to the first column. So I am retrieving it. Storing is an integer value. Now this is my combo box. By using the add item function, I am storing that ID value inside my combo box. Since the ID value is integer, combo box can accept only the string values. So we are trying to convert integer to string. So now we will execute and check. Yes, so now my IDs are loaded. So I am ready with the connection is success, so that I can able to fetch all my ID details inside the combo box. Next, I need to fetch the entire information as a table that to be displayed inside my J table. So to do that, I have to enable the function called as load data. So these are my user defined functions. So load the data from the MySQL table to the J table. So to do that, I have again written a separate function, that is load data. So load data, what I have to do, the same functionality. First, I have to call the connection string. The connection string object is ready. Then now the query want to execute it is select star, because I need both the ID and the name need to be retrieved. So select star from the user data. Using a create statement, I am executing the query. So now the results are ready. Using the while loop, you need to retrieve. So the retrieved value you need to display in your table, that is your J table. The table will be referred with the variable T model. So here we need to start from the initially the row count is 0 because nothing is available in your J table. So the row count is 0. So after retrieving the first row from your database, I am getting the first column, that is the integer value user ID. Username is a string. Now what we have to do in our J table, we have a method called as add row. So add row, this two information, that is every row in your database, already we converted this as a class as an object concept. So these are the members of your class. So now it will be considered as, row will be considered as one object. So the row containing the object. How will you create the object? The object contains two information, that is the ID and the string that you pass. So that object information will be added as a row inside your J table. So that will be repeated until we don't have any values in your database. So now just run the code. Yes, so now your rows are added. So every row from your database will be fetched. It will be considered as an object and that will be added inside your J table. So next thing is we want to add the functionality for the save button. So when I give the ID value, because ID is again primary and unique, I have to give the ID value and I have to give some name. So when I do it and click the save button, my save button has to enable the event handler, that is action listener, and the corresponding function need to be executed. So to do that, we are having the action listener. So for the button 1, I need to add the action listener. Button 1, action listener, action performed. So what action you need to do? You need to take the first text box value. Text box values are defaultly string, so it need to be converted as integer. Then we need to get the second text box value. So your ID value is ready and the name is ready. So as I told already, this will be taken as an object. So because I want to insert this particular information inside my database as an object. So every row in my table represents one object. So I am creating an object by having the user ID and the username. Now I need to invoke a function. So now from the view I got the input and then this will be passed to my controller. So my controller has to execute the insert query so that the data will be inserted inside my database. So I am calling my controller. Inside the controller I have a function called as insert. After inserting, again I need to refresh the JTable and also refresh my combo box. So I have called the function load data and the load ID. So this insert function I have returned inside the controller package. So this is my controller package. So inside the controller package I have the user control. So here I have returned the insert function. So that only make you to differentiate the view separately, model separately and the controller separately. So insert data. So one object now will be added as one row in your database. So the query you want to use is insert into table name values. So how many values you need to add? Because my table having two columns, that is the user ID and the username. The user ID is available in the u.id and my name will be available in u.name. Because u is the object of the class user data, you know that this class having user ID and the username. So the first question mark will be replaced with the ID. Second question mark will be replaced with the name. Again we need to start our connection string, connect with our connection string. Now we have a statement called as prepare statement. By using this prepare statement, we are going to tell the first question mark need to be replaced with the ID. Second question mark will be replaced with the name. So we are having the statement. In the statement, if it is an integer, because my first column is an integer, so to set the value, I need to use with set int. From where I need to take the value? It is already in the object. From the object, get user ID. I have the getter and setter already created. Get user ID. So the user ID from this object will be retrieved and it will be set in the first column. The second column is a string column. So it will be taken from the username and that will be stored in the second column. So these two question marks are now replaced with the ID and the name, which already from the view we taken through the text box. We have taken this from the text box. Remember, these two values we taken from the text box and that will be passed as the constructor to the class user data. So it will be considered as an object. So now this object will be taken with user ID and the username. So this is actually called as entity framework. We are accessing our data in terms of classes and object concept. And now we need to execute the query. The query execution, now we need to use the function called as execute update. So previously we have seen for the select query, we have a function called as execute query because the select query will return only the rows and columns. It won't do any updations in your actual database table. But now whenever you use insert query, a new row is added inside your database. So we have a function called as execute update. If the execution is returned or done correctly, you will get the success information that will be written as 1. So if it is written 1, you know that the corresponding row is correctly added inside your database. So by using the show message dialog box, If it is insert properly, I am giving the success message as 1 and row is inserted. So now again we'll execute it. So I am going to give a value 104. I am going to give a value Tom and save. Row inserted. Same time it is reflected in your J table, and also here in your ID also the new value get reflected. So now I want to edit it. 104 instead of Tom, I need to replace his name to Tommy. So how to do it? So the edit button will be represented with button 2. So I am going to add the action listener to the button 2. So this is my button 2. I am going to add the action listener. So what I have to do? I have to take the value from the first text box, take the value from the second text box, same as I create the user data object, and now in the controller I need to call the function called as update, because based on the user ID I need to change the name of the user. So go to your user control, and here we have a function called as update. So during the update function, now the query need to be executed as update query. So update table name, set which value you want to modify. I want to modify the user name. Based on which condition? Based on my user ID is the ID whatever I have it from the text box. So the user ID is unique. So based on the user ID, I am going to change the username. So this question mark should be replaced with the corresponding username for this particular user ID. Again, you need to create the connection string, connect with your server, then prepare statement, then execute update. So before that, you need to tell this question mark need to be replaced with which value. So already you got your username from the text box 2, that is passed as a object here. From this object, I need to get the username. So this username will be set in the question mark. That is, the Tom will be now replaced with Tommy. If the execution is success, we get the success message is equal to 1. Now we will get a message, the row is updated. So I will just execute. So now I am going to change the value 104, and that value need to be replaced with Tommy. Already it is Tom. Now I need to replace with Tommy. So edit. Yes, so now it will be replaced with Tommy, and my ID is also available. Next thing what I want to do is I want to delete. If I give an ID number here, that ID value should be deleted from the database. Deleted from the database. Okay, so this all is actually reflected here also. You can see here when I take this here, I can able to see the changes also reflected in my SQL server. So now I will go with the delete query. So in order to do the delete, I will go here. Go here in the view, I need to add the action listener for the button 3. So button 3 is now my delete button. Same thing, I need to get the first text box, second text box, create a user data object. Now I need to call the delete function. So delete function is again available inside my controller. So go to my user underscore control, and here I have the delete function. So delete function is available here. What is the thing available in the delete function? So now the query need to be executed as delete query. So delete from table name where if the user ID is 104 or whatever value you give it in the text box, based on the user ID, the corresponding row get deleted from your table. So we create a connection string and then call the connect function, and then prepare statement and then execute update. So now your delete query is executed successfully. Once it is executed success, you will get the messages success equal to 1. So while you execute, now I am going to delete 104. That is the row I want to delete. So based on my user ID, this get deleted. Yes, so now this is again deleted. From here also it is deleted, because dynamically whenever I do change, I will update my loading in the combo box and loading inside my J table. So now what I want to do is, whenever I do a selection in my combo box, if I select 1 or 2, only 1 or 2's information only displayed in the J table. If I select 1 or 3, only 1 or 3's information need to be displayed here. So how to do that? So whenever my combo box get changed, okay, if make change in the combo box, so there is a event called as item change. Okay, there is a event called as item change. So this is the thing, my combo box add item listener. In that I have a function called as item change event. So if this item change event is enabled, okay, if this item change event is enabled, I need to first select which item I selected, because when I run it, I am selecting some option here. I am selecting something here, some item I am going to select. So the item selected, the selected item, I am going to get it. So if I selected the caption, the title, I don't want to do anything, just load the data. Else means I am selecting any one of the ID number. So generally I told the J combo box having the input as a string. So first it need to be converted as an integer. Then I create my connection string connect, and whichever ID number I selected in the combo box, that ID number information only I need. So I am writing the query as select star from my table where the user ID what I selected. For that ID, the particular row need to be executed and returned back to me, and that thing I need to add in my J table. So how to add in the J table? Already I have told, initially the row count is 0. I fetch the particular row from the result set, and the first field is an integer, second field is a string, and in my J table using the add row, it will be added as an object. So now we will execute. So now I am going to select 1 or 2. See here, only the row 1 or 2 get activated. So remaining everything went off. Now what I want to do is, when I click the display button, every information need to be displayed. All the rows in my table need to be displayed. That is my last function. So my display button is available in button 4 control. So I am going to the button 4 control. Button 4 control. So this is my button 4 control. So simple thing, I don't want to do anything. I just load the data. I just load the ID, because no options. So if I want to display, it has to display all my values from the database. That's all. So load data function already we have seen. Load ID function already we have seen. So load data means it will load the information in the J table. Load data means it will load the data in the combo box. So now we will execute. So I need to give this 1 or 2. So only this value extracted and displayed in the J table. Now I click the display button. All the informations are displayed. So now we'll verify once again. We need to give 105, adding a value, Billy, save it, row inserted, 104 is inserted here. I need to change the value 106 to Benny, okay, 103 to Benny, then edit. So automatically 103 will be changed to Benny, and then I need to delete 102 and click delete. So 102 get deleted, and I want to know about 104. So 104 user ID, and if I give display, all these informations will be displayed. I hope now you all understand how to create a Java Swing application with the MVC framework, and also how to connect the Java application with the SQL server. Thank you.